What a squad. I feel like I'm having a great ass day right now. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I feel amazing right now. And that's just because I worked so hard today. I didn't quit. I was motivated. I stayed on my shit. I feel like nobody could stop me today. Like, I really feel good, squad. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Hopefully you guys feeling the same thing. Hopefully you guys got that shit with you. And I know it's been a little minute, but I'm delivering it right now. So shut the fuck up, squad. I got a scary video for you. I know. Been a little minute, but we got one. And Chillin' Scares is here to deliver. So, no further ado, let's hop into this. Boo! Don't get scared, squad. I know it's night, but don't get scared. Let's light this bitch back up.
On July 7th, 2006, a user under the name Box uploaded a new location to the website Urban Exploration Resource. The listing looked routine, an abandoned hotel in Atlanta, but buried in the photo gallery was a horrifying set of images that would set off one of the darkest internet mysteries that remains unsolved. Urban Exploration Resource, or UER, is an old online forum built around people documenting and discussing abandoned buildings and other forgotten urban spaces. This particular location was an abandoned hotel somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, where Box and a few friends had gone to photograph whatever had been left behind before the building was cleared out. At first, nothing about the hotel seemed unusual. It had 4 floors.
That's gotta be from a different country, or they gotta be white people, cause I know us black people, we won't do no shit like this. Me and my cousin, we was off shrooms, like dead ass story. We was off shrooms, right? Or whatever. We was off shrooms or whatever. But we're walking. I look beside me. I look at this creepy ass house. I'm like, look at this cut. Look at this creepy ass house. He was like, yeah, you ain't lying. That shit creepy as fuck. I'm like, ain't it? And I'm like, but white people go in that bitch and investigate. And he looked at me and he said, you ain't lying, boy. And I'm like, yeah, I know I ain't, bruh. Because I don't know what's up with these white. It's not even white people. I mean, yeah, it is. It is. It really is just white people. I mean, and then you got different country people. So it's like, I can't just blame it on my people. Because you got people from different countries inspiring them. They inspiring the white people to do it. Because in different countries, I feel like that in different countries, that shit real as fuck. But down here, no, we don't got no shit.
Rows of ordinary-looking rooms and wide interior walkways that look down over a pool in the center of the building. And judging by the personal belongings still scattered throughout some of the rooms, it could not have been emptied very long ago. According to Box's own description of the location, though, the final chapter of the hotel had been anything but quiet. This hotel was built in 1972, renovated in 1993. It spent most of its life as a major chain hotel. In 2004, the hotel became independent of the major chain. The main business model after that was a long-term stay hotel. This attracted many drug dealers and other illegal business to the hotel, and it was raided by the DEA and local authorities at least once. After many years of trouble, it closed in February 2006. But even with such a grim history, nothing about the hotel...
What do you mean at least once? I don't like that. I don't like how you just said, what do you mean at least once? I guess I understand if you said at least twice, but like, at least one squad? What? Am I just tripping or that made no sense? I don't know.
Reputation could explain what Box found waiting in one of the rooms on the second floor. Attached to the location was a photo album titled Crime Scene-tastic, Not for the Faint of Heart, Fair Warning. And inside were 6 images of a stack of printed photographs that showed a middle-aged man who had almost certainly been murdered. Some of them showed him dead on the floor with blood pooled across the wood beneath him, while others showed the room where the crime took place with a bed and walls both heavily marked in blood. Naturally, once other forum users saw the gallery, the first thing they wanted to know was whether Box had taken the photographs with him when he left. Because if the prints were still there, they could be turned over to authorities who could figure out where they came from. But Box said he left them exactly where he found them. According to him, there were, quote...
If I'd have found that too, I ain't gonna lie, but I'm out of there. But hitting wind. When you run, hit wind, bro. Hit the wind. Cut wind, bro. Cut. Run. Not fucking looking like a fucking idiot. No, run. Cut that wind, bro. It makes you run faster. I don't know how. Don't. It's not science facts, but it just is.
Authorized people gutting the place, and he didn't want to be seen taking anything. He also explained how the photos were too morbid, and he'd been in too much shock to even consider it. Instead, he posted a map link to the location so anyone in the area could go and retrieve the photos for themselves. But when one of the users visited the very next day and searched through the building, the photographs were already gone. Now, one explanation could be that Box had taken the photographs from somewhere else and attached them to his post for attention. One user even asked that the photos were fake snuff. But when you try reverse searching the images, they don't show up in a single other place online. If they had been taken from a movie or some well-known crime case archive, you would think there must have been at least one other trace of them somewhere online, which means these prints may be documentation of a genuine crime scene, and the only surviving record of it is this one forgotten forum post from 2006. Unfortunately, nothing about the post gives any clues as to where the prints came from or why they had been left there. Considering the criminal activity at the hotel before it shut down, the simplest theory is that the crime itself took place in one of the rooms, and the photos were taken by whoever did it. Maybe they were supposed to be trophies or some kind of record the killer never expected anyone else to find. And if the building really had been raided before it closed, it isn't hard to imagine someone fleeing in panic and leaving the prints behind along with everything else they couldn't take with them. However, there are some problems with this explanation. Firstly, in the photos Box uploaded, the hotel rooms clearly appear to have carpeting, but the crime scene captured in the prints has wooden floorboards. On top of that, if the crime had happened somewhere inside the hotel, you'd expect at least one of the explorers wandering through to stumble onto the room with walls and bedding soaked in blood. More importantly, some of the black and white photographs in the stack show the same body on a white surface that looks more like an autopsy table than anything inside an abandoned hotel room. This suggests the victim was found and processed by authorities at some point, so these prints could have belonged to someone connected to the investigation or to a case file where those images have been preserved as evidence. But even though this theory feels far more plausible compared to the idea that the killer simply left them behind, there's still no solid proof that connects the photographs to a real case. Looking through the missing person reports from the Atlanta area from that period doesn't include anyone whose details match the victims in the photographs. This might suggest the crime happened years before the pictures were discovered, or in a completely different part of the country. Unfortunately, this is where the trail simply stops. Even 20 years later, there is still no answer for why someone would carry evidence of a horrific murder into a building scheduled to be torn down, only to toss it into a pile of old clothes and just leave it there.
Only they know.
On February 26, 2000...
Shut the fuck up. No, let me stop playing. But shit like that, only they know, only the killer knows, and that's the scariest part. Think about that. He's the only person that knows why he did that. And he will be the only guy that knows. And he's still out there. He might be looking for you.
2026, a series of videos began spreading throughout the unregulated corners of the internet, capturing what would soon become one of the most horrifying crimes in Poland's recent history. At first, the footage gave viewers almost no context for what they were seeing. It showed a teenage boy standing in a garage, calmly swinging an axe through the air, like he was practicing to hit something. But the next clip revealed exactly what that practice may have been for. For this video, the camera was inside a home late at night. The same boy entered a room where two people appeared to be asleep. He positioned the camera so the room was clearly in frame and stepped back toward them. He then picked up the axe and began swinging, before either victim had a chance to wake up. As disturbing as this footage was, it unfortunately didn't seem much different from the kind of material that circulates on gore sites. These platforms are full of violent videos, stripped of context, reposted so many times over the years that no one knows when they were filmed or where. But as these particular clips began spreading, viewers began noticing that they clearly were not something just pulled from an old archive. Instead, everything about them, from the video quality to the interior of the house, seemed fairly modern, which meant the gruesome event it captured may have been more recent than people first realized. With this realization, the clips broke out of these gore sites and spread across social media and private messaging apps across Poland. By 4 a.m. the next morning, enough people had forwarded the clips to police that authorities were already treating the footage as evidence from an active crime scene. Using whatever was visible in the background of the clips, investigators were able to trace the footage to a property in the small village of Kodłub in southern Poland within a few hours. The boy in the videos was identified as 17-year-old Łukasz G. When officers arrived at the home, their worst fears were confirmed. They had found his 38-year-old stepfather and 87-year-old great-grandmother lifeless, right where the camera had shown them being attacked. With the crime now confirmed, officers began searching the area surrounding the property, which led them roughly 45 kilometers away to a cluster of bushes by a nearby river where Łukasz was hiding. Given what had just been found inside the house, many would have expected him to panic, run, or try to deny what happened. But the 17-year-old showed no resistance during his arrest and seemed unnervingly calm. His behavior made it almost impossible to make sense of what was going on or what his motive was. Until investigators found one last piece of media he had uploaded after the crime. It was a roughly 2-minute video titled My Last Statement. In it, Łukasz sat in front of the camera and introduced himself as a family murderer before admitting that he had killed 2 people inside his home. Speaking in the same flat, detached tone throughout, he then described the days leading up to the murders. He claimed that someone at work had been humiliating and insulting him for weeks until he felt he simply couldn't take it anymore. But instead of directing his anger toward the person he claimed had mistreated him, Łukasz turned it toward his own family. In his mind, because his stepfather kept pushing him to go back to that same workplace, he had somehow become part of the very thing tormenting him, and so had everyone else living under that roof. Rather than sounding horrified by what he had done, Łukasz started justifying his crime, saying that, in his opinion, murder was a part of human life, that people had been killing one another since the beginning, and that the only difference now was that someone like him would be called a psychopath for it. Despite that self-awareness, he insisted that he wasn't sick and promised that he wouldn't take another life again. But to anyone watching the videos, his insistence that he wasn't mentally ill was the clearest sign that he was. On one hand, he looked composed enough to lecture a camera about the nature of killing, yet on the other hand, he was unable to see anything wrong with the 2 bodies he'd just left behind. Looking back, it's hard not to see him as a deeply disturbed teenager who gradually lost his grip on reality. Eventually, Łukasz was charged with double homicide and now faces up to 30 years in prison. In the time since, the videos have largely been scrubbed from the internet, with Polish police asking people to stop sharing them out of respect for the families. Unfortunately, footage like this never truly disappears, and continues to get passed around in the darkest corners of the internet.
That's so weird, Squall. Why is people doing that?
The internet is just one of those things that has a way of pulling you into places you never expected to end up. Researching these videos, I constantly get lost in endless forums and disturbing websites where before I know it happens, and Reader for sponsoring this video.
A big head ass
In December 2014, a Japanese website appeared online with a slogan on its homepage that immediately explained the kind of depraved place it was. When translated to English, it read, "I wish my husband would die right now. I think about it every day." The site was called Danasheen.com, which translates to diehusband.com, and it functioned as an anonymous forum where wives could write about the men they were married to. First looking at the site, most of the entries read like desperate venting from women who had been holding something in for years. "Nothing good has happened in the 10 years I've been with this guy. He thinks it's okay when I'm not good and complains if he doesn't like something. Does the world revolve around him? I'm just annoyed by being with this rude jerk. He's been lying to me for 20 years, and I, being foolish, have been deceived all this time. But I've reached my limit. When I talk to him, he just lies, and when he's at a loss for words, he stays silent." Posts like these fill hundreds of pages on the site, with anonymous wives describing husbands who cheated, gambled away household money, came home drunk, and treated their families selfishly. But digging deeper into the posts, that resentment would sometimes turn into something far more disturbing. You see, the site was themed around the popular manga Death Note. Death Note is a Japanese manga series in which writing someone's name in a supernatural notebook causes their death. And the users treated the forum as exactly that, an online notebook addressed directly to the Grim Reaper, begging him to kill their husbands for them.
What?
How long is this scumbag husband going to live? Grim Reaper, please come and take this scumbag husband away quickly. As soon as possible, please. Good morning, Grim Reaper. I wish my husband would die right now. I think about it every day. He's a truly awful husband. My heart is always in prayer. Please die soon. The site's admin even kept a running counter on the homepage tracking how many husbands had supposedly died, as if the forum itself were taking credit. And when a husband did actually die, the tone of the site became even more unsettling, as the women returned in ominous celebrations. For instance, one woman described finding her husband cold in bed one morning and calling an ambulance. And her post reveals exactly what she felt when the responders confirmed that he had passed away. "Honestly, I'm so happy. Thank you, Grim Reaper. while other users in the comments enviously congratulated her. And as unsettling as all of this tragedy is, these posts aren't even close to the darkest thing on the site. But once you understand the world these women come from, the site starts to look more complicated than it first appears. Japan is a fairly conservative society when it comes to divorce. The simplest way to end a marriage is through mutual consent. If the husband refuses to sign the divorce papers, the wife is forced through mediation and lengthy court proceedings just to get out of a life she no longer wants to be in. Even after separation, most women face judgment from their own families and communities, because divorce carries a level of shame that makes leaving feel like a public failure. And for single mothers, it's even worse, as the pressure is often tied to money. Many of the women writing on Dana Sheen described being financially trapped and unable to afford a separate life. So, to many of them, the death of their husband genuinely appears to be the only way to ever live a happy life again. And when a platform is built entirely around this belief, it becomes the perfect place for someone already on the edge to convince themselves that taking matters into their own hands is the next logical step, which is exactly what happened. In some of the most extreme entries on the site, begging the Grim Reaper wasn't enough. One woman wrote, "I want to somehow find a way to kill my husband without getting caught. I'll pretend to be sad when he dies." Sadly, she wasn't the only one. Some depraved users admitted to preparing bug-infected food and feeding it to their husbands to make them sick. But a few went even further and outlined step-by-step instructions on how to poison a husband by lacing his drinks with drugs that shut organs down slowly without raising suspicion. And because these posts are written anonymously, there's no way of knowing whether they are simply dark fantasies or genuine confessions from women who actually went through with it, which suddenly makes the death counter a lot harder to look at. There's no way to know how many of those deaths happened on their own and how many were planned on this very website. But as depraved as these entries were, some of the hardest ones to read weren't directed at husbands at all. Some of them were written by women who started hoping for their own end. And once you start reading entries like these, it becomes clear that many of the women using this site weren't driven by cruelty. They were writing from places of exhaustion, fear, and years of ill treatment. For some, the darkest thoughts were the only ones that still made sense. And when you read what they were actually living through, it's hard not to understand why. One woman wrote, "My heart is dead. It's being killed by the verbal abuse of my husband, who denies my very existence. When he's in a bad mood, he takes it out on me. He says it's all my fault, that this happened because my character is rotten, connecting even the most unrelated things and denying everything about me. I've tried to forget, to ignore it, and endured it until now, but I can't take it anymore." For others, the ill treatment went far beyond words. "When I was 3 months pregnant with my first child, he pushed me down the stairs during an argument, fracturing a bone that took 6 months to heal. When I was in my 9th month of pregnancy with my first child, he drove me to a remote mountain area, threw me out of the car, and dragged me around." In the end, Dana Sheen, or Die Husband, was built on the desperation of women who felt trapped in lives they couldn't escape. But that same desperation created the perfect cover for people with far darker intentions.
What the fuck?
On the evening of February 22nd, 2023, a 26-year-old Microsoft employee was walking home from the Microsoft One Estera building at around 5:45 p.m. when he noticed a man approaching him while shouting at the top of his lungs. But before he could make sense of what was happening, he was punched to the ground and stabbed 13 times. The entire attack lasted roughly 10 seconds, but it was enough to leave him with a skull fracture, a brain bleed, and nerve damage in both his hands. Just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. A few bystanders shouted at the attacker, but he simply fled the scene and walked down the street to his own apartment roughly 4 blocks away, leaving a trail of blood that a SWAT team would later follow straight to his door.
Oh, no.
The attacker was identified as 27-year-old Joseph Richard Cantrell, who was also a software engineer at Microsoft. That connection immediately led police to suspect a workplace rivalry. But according to the victim, he had never seen Joseph before in his life, and the two didn't even work in the same building. So, the more investigators learned about the attack, the less it looked like Joseph had been targeting someone he knew. And the only place that seemed to offer any explanation was Joseph's own website. When the investigators went through his personal computer, they found a hidden link to a text file. It was a 234th for years and uploaded to the internet just out.
You good, squad? My bad, bro. I'm faded as fuck. I hit my stand, knocked it over and shit. Yeah, it be like that though, squad. You know what I'm saying? You a bitch, so you be alright. you niggas die every day, B, so you be alright. Bro.
Hours before he carried out the attack, and somewhere inside those pages was the answer to why a random Microsoft employee nearly bled to death on a sidewalk that evening. But to understand what was inside the journal, you first need to understand what Joseph believed about himself. And the clearest window into that was the About section on his website. Alongside other surface-level information, Joseph wrote about experiencing what he called neural disturbances, where he claimed to have danced and conversed with processions of rainbow ghost women who kept him company through the night. So, before the journal even began, his own introduction already suggested a mind that wasn't interpreting reality in an ordinary way. And those hallucinations would appear again and again throughout the journal, often during some of Joseph's most important decisions. He had given himself...
Let me know if you guys want a part 2 of this shit. I might just post this tonight, probably. Maybe something else, too. I don't know. It depends how I feel. I might wake up and post something else. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you want to see something else. Let me know in the comments if you want to see part 2. Let me know in the comments if you're just a little bitch. Let me stop. I'm fucking with your boys. If I entertain you, whatever, you know what to do. Hit that like button right here. It only takes 3 seconds. And yeah, hopefully you got that good shit and you smoked that bit and you just faded as hell. A bit lag, I don't know. I'm so faded, I don't know. Alright, peace. Riri out, pussy.